Oh my gosh, I feel so much better this week.
Awesome. I'm glad that chiropractor appointment this morning helped.
Well, it did, but I was actually more talking about moving away from that meltdown that I had last week.
Good. Yeah, that was pretty ugly, Dad.
Yeah, it was. I apologize.
It's okay. We forgive you. Star Wars is all about redemption. It's our job to bring you back from the dark side. So that's what we are trying. That's what we did.
Yeah, but we're not going to start singing like Yub Nub or anything here, right?
Well, we can't. There's like all these copyright restrictions.
Oh, thank goodness. Okay, good.
Yeah, but we will dive into this week's fantastic episode of The Bad Batch after these ads specifically chosen to give Wrecker more time to figure out his next move against Omega. This is Tatooine Sons.
Achuta, Star Wars, Marvel, DC, and Doctor Who fan.
Doctor Who?
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 Anyway, it's sounding like that the Tootsie Pop ad now.
Now I want a Tootsie Pop. Right.
Thanks for tuning in. If you want some really cool pop culture merch, we actually just added 3 Invincible shirts from the show.
We did.
If you want any of that cool merch, just go to our TeePublic store. The link is in the show description below. Anything you buy using that link, 100% of the proceeds will go to help One Child, which helps children living in poverty. So you get some really cool pop culture merch, and you get to help a kid along the way. It's a win-win. If you're going to get something cool and nerdy, use our link.
Yeah, thanks for doing that.
It's true. All of it.
What is the name of the Porg on the Millennium Falcon?
Force is strong in my family.
What do you think his name is? It's a big moment.
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Maybe Turbis?
Do or do not. There is no try.
Turbis? Pablo, if you're listening to this live stream, that Porg's name is now Turbis. It's a good Star Wars name.
We're not done yet.
These guys recorded an awesome podcast called Tatooine Sons. Everybody was lit.
I gotta work on my Mando costume. Walked in there on the Star Cruiser.
Yeah,
I think BB Nation should wear the inflatable.
Okay, I couldn't do that for like, what is it? 2 days, 2 nights?
Sleep in it.
Yeah, welcome to Tatooine Sons. This is a pop culture podcast. That is what this show is, right?
It is. If I checked,
I almost said Star Wars. We believe that pop culture is the mythology of this generation, that there is a story, it is written on our souls, and that these myths speak to that story. One of the topics under or characters underneath your topic, Sam, is straight out of biblical mythology. It's really interesting.
I'm not aware of this, but okay.
We'll have some fun with that. That's why we talk about Star Wars, Marvel, DC, Lord of the Rings, and a bunch of other things. We do not talk about Doctor Who because we've never made it through an entire episode of it because it was too weird. I'm David. I'm the dad. This is
Hi, Dad.
Thank you.
Hi, Dad. Hello, Father. How are you?
I'm good. I'm fine. Thank you.
Good.
I'm joined by a couple of really amazing sons.
Yes,
Nate,
you are.
You finally got to see it. It's hard being as humble as you are right now. You got to finally see part 2 of Batman: The Long Halloween. You're going to break that down. What are you? Are we just going to break it down point by point?
No, last time I did breaking it down by holidays. That it worked for that, but this time I'm going to be going through the changes from the comic to the movie because there were a lot of changes. A few of them weren't necessary, but a few of them were actually significant. So we'll talk about those.
Sam?
Yeah, and
it's another week without a Marvel show. Do you have anything to talk about?
Yeah, no.
A Marvel show.
A Marvel show, right. Marvel's What If comes out pretty soon. So
by the time we get to another episode of this, Marvel What If will have already aired.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to do a bit of a preview episode on it.
That's awesome. All right. And
what are you talking about?
I'm going to have an opportunity to talk about a very consequential, exciting, cinematic and riveting episode of The Bad Batch, which I desperately needed after last week's episode. So, that was pretty cool. But we've got a celebration today on this show. You guys are just killing it. Not just listening to the show, but like interacting on social media, especially all of you that follow us on Facebook. We just literally a minute ago crested the 20,000 Facebook followers mark. On that, that is awesome. It's been like we've added almost 4,000 followers in the last 4 weeks.
That's insane.
You guys are just having a ton of fun on there. We're interacting in lots of different DC, Marvel groups, of course, our Star Wars groups as well, and having lots of fun with that. So thank you for doing that. Let's here's to another 20,000 at some point. So it only took us 4 years to get there. So if we're still doing this podcast in 4 more years, that would be really
surprising.
Sad. No, interesting. No, it's just like, I mean, come on, you guys are like both adults by then. But anyway,
24.
Yeah, exactly. We speaking of adults and growing up, Son's doing that. You guys talked me into watching season 1 of Invincible.
Mm-hmm. Can we give spoilers? Are you going to give spoilers?
I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't. I wouldn't give spoilers, but just an overall, really quick, like one sentence thought. You guys have read a lot of the comic stuff. I have not. Mm-hmm. Thoughts on it? I'll start with you, Sam.
I thought it was really good. I did enjoy it, but I'm going to be one of those guys, and I'm not usually like this. I did prefer the comic.
The book was better.
Well, no, it's just they did some stuff that was a bit unnecessary in the show, I feel like. Okay. But don't let that turn you off from watching it.
Was it a good show?
It was a good show.
Okay.
I
BB
think
Nate?
So.
Yeah, I really loved the show. I think it did a great job honoring the source material. I wouldn't say it's better than the book, but I wouldn't say the book is better than it. They both took liberties and they both took changes, and so I think that it works. The show works better for what it's trying to do. I think they're both interesting to watch.
All right, my first of all, disclaimer: don't watch this with your kids. No little kids. It's gory.
Yes.
And there's some bad words. Just I like 1 or 2 that are pretty significant, but throughout the entire 15 or 8 episodes or whatever.
8 episodes. 8 45-minute episodes.
Yeah, it was very fun. It was riveting. I am disturbed at the end of it. But I don't know what happens in the rest of the story, and you guys do.
Interested enough in watching a season 2?
I feel like I have to watch a season 2 because everything. I mean, it was like the origin story of Invincible is what this was. So yeah, it was good. No show next week on the 6th.
We're going to Disney World.
It's BB Nate's birthday weekend, so we're gonna leave the week before or a few days before and head down to Walt Disney World. We're gonna do some galaxy edging. And that doesn't mean like getting an edger out like in Disney World.
Oh, okay.
We're gonna go to Galaxy.
Yeah, we're gonna do landscaping.
We're gonna go see all of the different parks and do some park hopping and water parking and have a great
not parking
time.
Water, like going to water parks. Okay.
So we won't do a show next week on the 6th, and then BB Nate will have his birthday on the 8th, and we'll watch.
Happy birthday!
Yeah, we'll be back the following week. So I guess the 13th is the date that we'll be back.
Yes,
so we will have What If at that point.
Yeah, that'll be a lot of fun. So we'll do that. All right, this week's Bad Batch finally seems to have taken the show to a new level. But in classic Bad Batch fashion, it's all because of the cameo of the week.
Hokey religions and ancient weapons are no match for a good blaster at your side, kid.
Rebellions are built on hope.
Force is with me, and I am with the Force.
If you live long enough, you see the same eyes in different people.
The stormtroopers were like straight copies of the Ralph McQuarrie concept.
I loved it. It was so cool. Also, Republic Commandos are finally back into this canon.
Yeah.
Is great.
Really?
Oh yeah. They were just in the Republic Commando game.
Yeah, they were just in the Republic Commando game.
Nice.
They weren't canon yet.
Okay.
And they had the cool blue visor and all that stuff.
I didn't realize that it was the Ralph McQuarrie thing. I just noticed it was kind of a transition between the clone look and the Stormtrooper.
It's the Ralph McQuarrie art.
That's awesome. All right.
I just want to see a cosplay of it now.
Well, we had episode 14, War-Mantle, which is going back. As soon as I saw the name of the episode, I'm like, all right. Here we go.
Yep.
This is what we've been building to. We can move forward. So it disarmed me from the very beginning, which I needed coming into it. I was worried that we were going to see them with Sid.
In true Star Wars fashion, it disarmed you.
It disarmed me. Yeah, like I lost my right arm. Anyway, Initial reactions. I'll start with you, BB Nate. What did you think about this episode?
I thought it was a really great episode. I enjoyed it. I thought that the action was great. Loved seeing certain characters make their debut and certain people. I mean, like what I said, the Republic Commando, that was really cool. I just thought overall it was a great episode, but still didn't give me a purpose for this show yet.
Well, we'll talk about it. Yeah, that's an interesting thought. All right, Samuel the Hutt, what did you think about this?
Yeah, I agree. I did notice that the action sequences did feel very cinematic. Like there was that whole like dogfight almost at the end there, that just felt straight from a movie. But on top of that, the story was substantial and it had impact. So yeah, I loved it.
It was definitely a lot of fun. Felt important. Like I said earlier, consequential. Like it had purpose for the story going forward. So I'm excited about it. Let's talk a little bit about Rex and Gregor. Gregor, if you're not familiar, or you may have thought about it or heard the name in this, but you may not be like as geeky about Star Wars as we are. And so it may be a little bit vague as who Gregor was. So let's do a recap on that. Rex and Gregor calls on the Bad Batch to go help Gregor, who is escaping on this planet, and gets captured by stormtroopers. And I think they are stormtroopers at this point.
Yes.
And just to recap that, Gregor was a clone commando during the Clone Wars. Now, if you remember, he suffered amnesia after crash landing on the planet Abafar. He didn't have any memory of who he was or his greater purpose in the galaxy. So he worked as a dishwasher, while millions of people that looked just like him were fighting a war, in the galaxy.
Fun stuff.
Yeah. Do you guys remember that arc?
Not at all.
Clone Wars? Well, what happens in it is, in that episode, he's reminded of who he was, where he came from. And so it looks like he sacrifices, like he gives his life to protect, Meeber Gascon.
This is the droid arc.
Yeah, this is voiced by the incomparable Stephen Stanton.
Yes.
His favorite character he voices, I think is what he said when he was on our show, episode 50. A few years ago. So he saves Meeber Gascon and his companions. Everybody thought he was dead, but of course, in Star Wars fashion, he's not. It probably should have killed him the way that the explosion was. They even joked about it in this episode, didn't they? They talked about him like...
Yeah, he was like in an explosion.
Yeah. Anyway,
they mentioned it.
They did mention it on that. It just messes with his head a little bit.
I don't think the chip does anything to him anymore.
I think that may have jarred the chip.
Yeah, you're right.
I didn't even think about that.
I was wondering the whole episode. I'm like, how did he disobey orders?
Yeah, it was that explosion jarred that chip, just like, the explosion made the chip working for Wrecker. On this. He also appears in season 2 of Rebels, and throughout the rest of the series, he's in hiding from the Empire with Rex and another clone named Wolf, until Ahsoka sends Kanan and Ezra to go find him, and he joins back up into the rebellion on that. So, BB Nate, how long did it take for you to figure out that Gregor was the clone that was running away in the opening moments of the episode?
When we saw a clone running, I was wondering if it was either Gregor or Wolf, but because you
Rex
don't exactly. Well, even before that, I was wondering, and then I saw Rex, and I'm like, okay, so it is Gregor or Wolf. And then I heard his voice. I'm like, okay, it's Gregor.
Yeah. His voice is so distinct, on that.
Yeah, that's what gave it away for me.
Yeah. Sam, what do you have to say to the cameo of the weak people? Because we got another cameo in this one. Is that rap a little justified? Is it a crutch for the show where they can't really keep the story moving or develop anything unless they have to bring in another character, which we talked about that a little bit last week, as well? Or is this just no big deal? Is this just Star Wars being Star Wars?
If it works, it works is my thought process. It's getting the job done. The stories are great. Leave it be. The reason why they bring in these characters is so that it feels like the story has a greater impact. If this were just some unknown clone, it may have still had an impact with the ending, with Hunter being captured or whatever. But just having that known character makes things a bit more consequential.
I think my concern is that we're more invested in the cameo of the weak characters than we are in Hunter, Crosshair, Wrecker, Tech, Echo, and Omega even.
That's a good point.
Is that kind of the challenge that we're starting to see with this show? Do you think that could be a problem going forward?
No, I don't think so. I think that we've come to the conclusion that these people are just the Bad Batch is a way, I feel like, to bridge the gap between Clone Wars Season 7 and Rebels. That's what I've been feeling this whole time. I mean, we get Hera, we get Kanan, now we have Gregor. I mean, we have all these characters from Rebels. And so it would make sense as a way to wean the people, Clone Wars fans, off of Clone Wars and put them on the track to watch Rebels. Because most people that haven't seen Clone Wars probably haven't seen Rebels. At least that's what I've come to the conclusion of. So I really don't know if it has a purpose for the grander story, but I think that the cameo of the week stuff is just a way to get at the show. I feel like it works. It's not a problem at all.
All right. That's fair. Now, there are characters that are from, prequel era that are in this show, but they're major characters in the show, and that's the Kaminoans. And it feels like things have gone very south for the Kaminoans up to this point. We've got Admiral Rampart coming in. He's got this Operation War-Mantle. Now it seems like it's in full swing. They are moving away from the clones to the stormtroopers, or from the CTs to the TKs. Their contracts with the Kaminoans, the Empire's contracts with the Kaminoans have been canceled. And now the Kaminoans are out there. They're looking for options. They're moving, mini Boba Fett's, all these little clones to other locations. And let's just jump to the end of the episode, because this is where Admiral Rampart apparently sees a purpose for Nala Se, because she's a scientist. He says, I have use for you. Obviously that has to do with cloning, with it. But he seems to have nothing left for Lama Su to do. And stormtroopers stay in the room and the door shuts. Sam, did the Empire just take out the Prime Minister of Kamino?
I think so. I mean, he was saying they have no need for politicians anymore. That guy was just a politician. He was the Prime Minister, He has no impact or no benefit to the Empire whatsoever at this point. They don't need him to control the planet. They already control that system or whatever. So just take him out. He's just an obstacle at this point. He's causing problems. He's telling Nala Se...
Yes.
Nala Se. He's telling Nala Se to get the clones off the planet and stuff, but that's causing issues for the Empire. Yeah. So,
BB Nate, is this setting up what we've talked about as this clone rebellion that we've kind of been hoping for? Are we getting to that point now?
Probably. I mean, at this point, we're kind of seeing the clone troopers removed and stormtroopers put into the way, and we keep seeing with the mini Boba Fett, they're like, I'm still going to be a soldier, right? So that's their purpose. They feel like the only thing that they can do in life is be a soldier. And we've seen that throughout Clone Wars. We've seen it with Rex. We've seen it with the guy I forget the guy who has a family that we saw earlier on in the Bad Batch. Cut. He still has the tendencies to want to be a soldier. All these people are wanting to be soldiers, so if they're taken out of this, they can't be soldiers, and they will most likely be executed at this point. So I think we might be seeing the Clone Rebellion sometime soon. But we have 2 episodes left?
Yep.
We don't have the time.
Yeah, you can't see it in this season.
You can't know.
They could set up the start of it and move it into the second season. Let's go back to Nala Se. If the Empire has a purpose for a cloner, is that purpose to help start creating clone host bodies for Darth Sidious?
Probably. They're probably going to go with that Legends route. They're just having backup clone bodies, kind of like cartridges for Palpatine. One wears out, you replace it.
Yeah, I mean, that so far, that's all we know that the Empire has used cloning for. They don't use it for soldiers, and so I think it makes sense that they're starting to get that process started. And who better to do that than the best cloners in the galaxy?
Yeah. They get Gregor out, of course. They save him because we know he has to survive all the way to the Rebels series. They end up sacrificing Hunter. To do that. This episode ends with a face-to-face confrontation between Hunter and Crosshair. Is this the first time that they've had this kind of face-to-face since Crosshair and Bad Batch broke up? Okay.
It's like a boy band.
Right?
Yeah. BB Nate, where's this thing between Hunter and Crosshair go?
Well, I'm sure it's going to go to the point where I hope the next episode is just them having a friendly conversation, just catching up, just how you doing, man?
Going out for a drink.
Yeah. It's all good. Yeah. I mean, you open up the cell door.
It'll be good. If that happens, it'll be good that we don't record an episode next week, just so you know.
Because you'll be angry.
I may go dark side again.
Yeah.
That's all they do. So.
Right. No, I think that would be a really cool episode. But in all seriousness, I really think that this is going to be bridging the point where we can see Crosshair. I think Hunter is going to do a classic trope where he's going to talk to Crosshair, feel like he's making a connection to Crosshair.
Okay.
They're going to save Hunter. He's going to be like, we can't leave without Crosshair. They're going to go back for Crosshair, and then they're going to get the chip out, and everything's going to be happy. And then they're going to lead a clone uprising on Camino.
All right. Hey, that was a well argued future of the show.
I mean, it could happen.
It could. Sam, what do you think? Where are we going from here?
I think he's got a point. I think Crosshair has to either switch back or die, or both. Maybe he sacrifices himself after turning good.
Okay.
But you cannot leave this season without something happening to Crosshair. I think it's gone on too long, or long enough, excuse me, and it's time for him to get better. So I think you're right. I think he's going to make some sort of connection. Maybe he just does his own brain surgery. He's got his fancy knife and he just while he's there, just hold still and just cuts it out.
Yeah, I don't think that would work.
You don't think that would work?
No.
No, but I agree, Nate. And I think, I don't know. I don't think we're going to see the Clone Uprising this season. I think that'll be a next season thing. Maybe that's their great purpose or whatever, as they go around rallying the troops.
Their glorious
or their
purpose.
leaders, the generals, the generals of the Clone Uprising.
So I think we need to get Crosshair back with the group.
Yeah,
it's not Bad Batch.
Okay. Final takeaways from this episode, BB Nate.
I think that we have 2 episodes left, and we don't have a purpose for this show. I feel like a main purpose, but I'm sure we'll find that out relatively soon, if not next episode or the episode after that. We don't have a renewal yet.
Yeah, they didn't announce a renewal of Loki until the day of the final episode.
That's also true. So I don't know. We'll see. But I'm excited to see where they go from this. Okay. But if we have the next episode where they're doing a job for Sid and not caring about Hunter,
please don't do that to us. Okay, Samuel, final takeaways.
Yeah, I agree. I think they need to set a path for the group, and I think that is to start a Clone Uprising. But they can't do that until they fix Crosshair and they deal with that situation. Obviously, they have to get Hunter back too, but I think in that process, they're going to fix Crosshair and everything will be right with the world.
Here's the speculation sure to go wrong. So what's going to happen is we're going to see Hunter and Bad Batch and a bunch of other clones try to do an uprising on Camino, and Crosshair is going to pull Hunter away, and they're going to be on one of the pads on Camino, and they're going to be in the rain, and it's going to be nighttime. They're going to have like a floodlight on them. They're going to do this big old battle. And then in the background, you'll see Starkiller fighting Vader from the end of
because we have to
2.
have a cameo of the week.
Exactly. Right. And we got cloners, so we can see Starkiller.
When are they going to bring Starkiller?
They're going to make Force Unleashed canon.
Exactly.
They need to bring Starkiller
make the Force Unleashed canon.
Or at least bring in that character or something.
That'd be cool. No, I agree with both of you guys. I don't think that there's a purpose for the show yet. Maybe they just want to give us an answer to how the Empire transitioned from clones to stormtroopers, because that's really all that's happened.
Yeah. It's kind of cool suits
in this entire season. It's possible that Hunter's capture and obviously what I think is going to be the inevitable 2-part season ending will get us kind of where we're hoping things go. It'll be that big moment. I do remember you talked about this last week. You guys brought me back from the dark side. We were joking. But BB Nate, you mentioned it last week. First season of Rebels was very similar to this. It kind of had starts and stops, and they were doing so much character development that sometimes it didn't work. And then they threw in some droid stuff and all that kind of thing with it. But when you get to that final episode where Kanan and the Inquisitor battle, the show changes.
Yes, it does.
With that. So I'm hoping that's what we get in these next couple of episodes. Yep. So Sam.
Yeah, so Marvel's What If is set to release later this month. So I'm going to go through and talk about everything.
It'll be next month. It's the end of the July right now.
Yeah, we're
still in July?
Yeah, we're at the last day of
the
July.
30th.
Why did I feel like it was August?
Anyway,
Well, okay.
Yeah, next month.
Yeah. Marvel's What If releases, so I'm going to go through and talk about everything we need to know so we're fully prepared for whatever is going to happen. That's a joke. There's no way anybody can be prepared for this show.
Right. Like any of the other Marvel shows that have come out. All right. And that's coming up after these ads specifically chosen for you by The Watcher. This is Tatooine Sons.
It's time to read some reviews.
So we'll just sit here for the next 45 seconds in total silence. Because we didn't get
I was going to see how long we could hold that out, but
this is going to make me really hard when I insert the ads in later because it's going to want to put an ad there.
Right.
Anyway.
But no, we didn't get any reviews, which is fine. Not really. So if you could, it'd be great if you could leave a review because it helps people find the show and discover it for, engagement purposes and also allowing people, if they read your glowing 5-star review, may want them to actually listen to the show because that's cool things to do. And if you leave us a review, we will make a donation to one child in your honor. So go to podchaser.com, look up Tatooine Sons, and leave us a review on the show or this episode. Or any episode.
2 minutes. All right. Just
Probably less than that.
Yeah.
Please.
Be on your guard. There are older and fouler things than orcs in the deep places of the world.
All right, then. Keep your secrets.
Your coming to us is as the footsteps of doom.
There are many magic rings in this world, Bilbo Baggins, and none of them should be used lightly.
Y'all know who's in that, weird Iron Man suit, right?
Yeah, it's Steve Rogers,
Yeah,
right?
Steve
Yeah,
Rogers.
I did something right.
I think it's called the Hydra Stomper.
Yeah.
What?
Hydra Stomper.
It's like Captain
yeah.
It's like Steve Rogers Iron Man.
Yeah.
Well, that's bizarre.
Come on, it looks cool.
If he has a Civil War moment, is he going to be fighting with himself?
No, he's going to be fighting with Peggy.
Why are you hitting yourself? Why are you hitting yourself? Why are you hitting yourself? You know that game?
He's going to be fighting Peggy.
Oh, no, he's not. All right. Anyway.
Man, what if?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, we're just going to go through and talk about some of the stuff you might want to know about the show before getting into it, all the information. First off, let's talk about some of the people behind the making of this show. So Brian Andrews, he's the director. The name may not sound familiar, but he's got some work under his belt. He won 4 Emmys for Star Wars Clone Wars.
All right, that's a good sign. Which one? The Tartakovsky?
I believe that's that one, wasn't it?
No.
Well, I know that Tartakovsky worked with him on both Samurai Jack and one of the Clone Wars. So
nice.
I believe it was the 2000.
I need to watch Samurai Jack.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And then he was actually the storyboard artist for Iron Man 2, Avengers, the 2012 one, Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and 2, and Endgame. So he's definitely got some experience with Marvel, and he's got experience with the animation, so
well, that sounds awesome.
The show sounds like it's in good hands.
All right, that's a good start.
And then AC Bradley is the showrunner. Nate, can you explain what a showrunner is real quick?
No.
All right.
I totally forget what that is. I know what it is, but it's fleeting me right now.
The showrunner is the person that basically, it's the, if you were to have a Dave Filoni or a Kevin Feige of a specific individual show, the showrunner
it's just
is
a glorified producer.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, they're more than a producer. They're the ones that make sure the show works.
Okay.
The
So
show
for example, when they announced The Acolyte, they announced that Leslie Headland was the showrunner. Of that.
Okay. Yeah. So AC Bradley's a showrunner. He actually wrote an episode of Arrow, Nate. I don't know if you've seen this one. It's season 2, episode 17, Birds of Prey.
Oh.
No, not a good episode?
No, I haven't, but the Birds of Prey can be a little bit iffy in the Arrow, so.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So bit up in the air with that. He did also do a couple shows for Netflix, Troll Hunters.
Okay, that one's actually
that's a big popular.
It's a popular show. So, and again, we've got another big person, and then Steven. This one's big. Steven Frank. something like that. Yes, not that kind of Frank. He's the head animator, and he worked on the original Space Jam and Iron Giant.
The good Space Jam?
Yes, and Iron Giant.
The only
Iron Giant.
Yeah.
That's gonna be cool. I get that vibe with the animation now.
Absolutely. Yep. I mean, now that you say that, I see Iron Giant all over this show.
So now that y'all know who's kind of like behind the making of this show, what do you think about this? How do you feel?
I think that it's a good decision to go with these people. I mean, with what they've done with the other Marvel series, that they've mainly taken people that aren't really well known. I mean, they've done a few things here and there, but with these people, they've done big things.
I mean, Brian Andrews won 4 Emmys.
AC Bradley doesn't seem like he's dabbled in a ton. I mean, he's worked for CW, so that's
anyway.
But I mean, you have that Stephen Frank with Iron Giant, which is one of the best.
No, I'm excited about these people behind the show. I think that they've got Marvel history and they've got great animation background. And then I'm not actually opposed to the idea of having somebody that's written in the Arrowverse come on over, because the Arrowverse is extremely popular with a group of people. So let's bring some of that idea over there. See what happens with it.
So now let's talk about some of the key moments from the trailer, because there was a lot that happened and it's a lot to break down. So we'll go through. First thing is Uatu or Uatu.
It's going to be Uatu.
Uatu, the Watcher.
Uatu the Watcher.
Uatu the Watcher.
Awesome.
So I actually looked it up. When I looked up the Watcher, it didn't pull up this guy. I had to look for him, because the Watchers is actually an ancient, highly advanced race they were almost like the first race. And they vowed to only ever observe and catalog knowledge, never interfere. Uatu didn't follow that vow. He was actually very rebellious in the comics against his father's wishes and stuff. He was constantly interfering because he didn't want bad things to happen. He actually first appeared in Fantastic Four, so he worked with the Fantastic Four a lot. And he actually had, in the 1950s, run-ins with Howard Stark and Nathaniel Richards.
That makes
now we get some Kang the Conqueror in here.
Yeah. So, usually these guys only have the ability to silently observe and watch, but they also have technology that allows them to see alternate timelines, which is what's happening here. This character is going to act like a narrator for this series, and he's actually being played by Jeffrey Wright, Nathan. That name should sound familiar. So he's actually making his MCU debut in this show.
He's gonna be in DC too. That's cool.
Yeah, so
get him into Star Wars and he's got the Triple Crown.
What do y'all think about this character, knowing that he does have pretty extensive backgrounds with characters that are existing and upcoming characters?
I love it. When you were describing, I didn't know what the Watcher was, but he reminded me a lot of something that happened in DC Comics. No, not the Monitor. Monitor isn't like that.
Okay.
He might sound like that, but he has no depth with monitoring anything. But there is a character, I keep forgetting his name, but he's described as DC's Watcher kind of person. He was in Death Metal. He was introduced in Death Metal.
Oh, okay.
And he is only there to observe and watch and actually go back to his coalition of people and decide whether they should prune the timeline, destroy the timeline.
Okay.
But why he didn't in Death Metal is because the timeline was so rich with stories that he decided not to.
Okay, so there's some parallels there that could play in.
That's interesting.
I'm excited about the idea of a Watcher, and here's why. Because, we open up the show with the idea that pop culture is the mythology of this generation, and that these myths speak to these, our souls, these stories that are written within our souls. Well, the idea of the Watcher comes straight out of the Bible. Okay. And then it's expanded upon in extra biblical ancient Jewish literature. It is the mythology of the Jewish people, this character, the Watcher. So in Daniel chapter 4, Nebuchadnezzar, the king, I'm going to try to do this without sounding totally biblical and geeky.
Just go for it.
No, I just don't want to do that because that's not what the show's, I don't want to dive into it too deep.
If you need to discuss
Nebuchadnezzar, who's the ruler of Babylon, Daniel's in there. Nebuchadnezzar has a vision. A Watcher comes to him and says that because he's rebelled against the God of heaven and earth, Yahweh, that he is going to lose his mind, and he's claimed to be a god. Nebuchadnezzar at this point is claimed to be equal to the one true God in the Bible. And Nebuchadnezzar is now going to become insane. He's going to live like an animal. His hair is going to grow out.
He's going to eat grass.
He's going to eat grass like an animal for 7 years and all this. And the Watchers are mentioned in that. They're mentioned later on in the book of Daniel, as being, these supernatural beings that exist in the supernatural world that are over the affairs of men and interacting in the affairs of men. So it's very similar to what's going on here. Now, extra biblical literature, the book of Enoch, it's loaded with the Watchers. And the Watchers are basically this group. So biblically, you have Yahweh, you have the one true God.
Right.
And he is the only God that exists outside of time and space, that didn't have to, he was uncreated. He's the only God that's omnipotent. He's the only God that's omniscient. He's the only God that's, perfect and that's is sovereign and all this other stuff. But there are other beings in the supernatural world that exist in that space. Okay. And they, according to the Bible at the Tower of Babel, when the nations are distributed, it says in Psalm 82 that Yahweh gave those supernatural beings authority over the nations, individually as nations. And in the book of Enoch, they're called the Watchers. So they're interacting over these natures, and they rebel against him. They actually rule unjustly. Psalm 82 says that God is going to cause them to die like mortals with it. And so all of this idea with the Watchers is with this character in here, it just really is interesting to me.
And it's funny you mentioned like how they're kind of presided over by like one being. They weren't like given dominion over things. They just kind of their own little organization that reports to. There's actually a higher figure that's also
in Marvel.
In Marvel, and they're actually the Watchers interact with the Eternals a lot too.
It sounded like that
right.
a lot.
And there's this character called the Fulcrum that they report to.
That helps to lead the rebellion against
that's
the
a
Empire?
different Fulcrum. Same Omniverse, different Fulcrum.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's interesting you mentioned that though, because there are a lot of parallels there, which and again, even more connections to things that are coming in the MCU.
Are we done talking about the Watcher?
I hope not. I hope we talk about the Watcher for a long time. Anyway,
right, for now at least.
For today,
now.
we can.
Okay, well, this is also a cool little tidbit I can put in there.
Okay.
Uatu the Watcher was actually designed by no other than Jack Kirby.
I was going to say Jack Kirby, Eternals. It feels like this a lot with that. That's cool. All right, cool.
Another thing was, this is weird, Killmonger saves Tony Stark. We see that, he's the Humvee's
in the trailer.
Taken
that's what we're back
out,
to the trailer.
and sorry, we're going back to key points. I should have explained that. And he's sitting there, and that bomb lands, and it says Tony Stark or Stark Industries, and then you see Killmonger come and throw it like a freaking football, and then they walk off into the sunset. Very confusing. No idea why that happens, but we see that's happening. So this might change Killmonger's motives later on or something. I mean, obviously this means that Tony's not going to become Iron Man anymore. He has no need to. We see, that, well, this might be a different universe, but Steve becomes a Iron Man in a way. So now that Tony is no longer a Iron Man, think about the repercussions that makes for the MCU. The MCU started with Iron Man becoming Iron Man. Now that he's not there, what do you think's going to change because of that? That one
it's almost impossible to imagine an MCU without Tony Stark as Iron Man. So I don't know where we can even go with
Can we address the fact that all of these different timelines most likely all encountered Thanos? Right?
Why do you say that?
Okay.
They all lost. Every single one of these timelines is lost.
Why do you say this? I don't understand where you're coming from.
We're looking at Doctor Strange from Infinity War. He looked at all the different timelines and if they would be able to win.
Oh, no.
And there was only one and that they won.
I think you're missing the point of that moment in Infinity War. He's not looking at all of these alternate timelines like we're seeing in What If. He's looking at the moment, all the possible timelines from that point forward on that in that moment with that. He's not looking at all these other timelines with that. So,
But if Tony was the one to make them win, they don't have a Tony.
So I agree with that.
This universe probably doesn't win.
Exactly. Yeah. So there are a lot of repercussions. That's kind of what the series is about. Like they mention how you change one tiny little thing. What else does it change for the remainder of the story? Exactly. And that's what happens here. Yeah. So what if Iron Man isn't taken? Also, we see later on that this story with Killmonger ends with a big battle with Ramonda, which is T'Challa's stepmother.
Okay.
So there's a big battle between those two in the end too, which is very different than what happened in the movie. So
interesting.
It's interesting. And then obviously Captain Carter is going to be a big point in this series, almost like the main character. I feel like Haley Atwell is reprising her role.
Nice.
So what happens in this is she takes the serum instead of Steve.
Yes.
And she could become Captain Britain later on, but that's actually more of an X-Men story, so they may not go there.
Or maybe they will.
Or maybe they will. We do actually, interestingly enough, we do see that she's wielding a sword in one scene. And in the comics, this guy, I forget his name, but Captain Britain encountered, I think it was Merlin or something, and was given the choice between like gauntlets of wisdom and a sword of might or something like that. And he chose the sword. So it could be that sword that we see there. Good.
Hiccups. Yeah.
Arnim Zola is back.
All right.
Which we last saw him in Winter Soldier, right? So we're going back in time and we're going to see him again.
Yeah, I know that we saw that in the trailer, and I was pretty excited when we saw him show up. So,
and then we also, this is big, we see her meet up with Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
Doctor Strange probably wasn't even alive yet, unless he went back in time or is jumping
main
through
character
timelines.
I'm going to like this show.
Yeah, that's your favorite movie, MCU movie.
Mm-hmm. My second favorite Marvel character, so it's exciting.
Mm-hmm. If you look at some of the merchandising and like the action figures, his costume's obviously different. He's got like bags under his eyes and stuff too, but he's actually Doctor Strange Supreme is his name.
Wow.
So
that's probably who he is now.
You think?
He's just the Sorcerer Supreme.
Okay, well, I mean, we'll have to see.
But, so it's probably he's bouncing around from timeline to timeline at this point. Maybe, what do you guys think he's trying to do with Carter? Do you think he's trying to fix some sort of timeline?
He's trying to recruit her.
For?
Saving the multiverse.
Interesting.
I'm just saying, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness is coming up.
I do feel like, that we see enough Doctor Strange and the Doctor Strange, like you said, Multiverse of Madness and his role as being the Sorcerer Supreme, supposedly protecting the timelines. I think that it sort of sets up the idea that Strange is the primary protagonist in this series.
Interesting.
And he's going from timeline to timeline, trying to resolve things or interact and that kind of thing, which I think if they do that and they make this, we can jump over to some Star Wars terminology here, make this canon, make this officially part of the MCU, instead of just being sort of side stories with it, I think it would be awesome.
Yeah.
So.
And this is more just like an Easter egg that Nathan will appreciate, or will kind of appreciate, the two of us. But we later see Carter fighting this character, Shuma Gorath. The name won't sound familiar, but it's some like character from this Cancer verse in Marvel. Weird alternate Earth. But this character was actually in the Marvel vs. Capcom game. You know it. It's the weird eye with all the tentacles and stuff. That's a Marvel character.
Okay, got it.
And they're actually going to be in this series.
Oh, cool.
So I thought that was kind of a fun little Easter egg. And then we also see an alternate take on the Guardians of the Galaxy, right? Obviously, Star-Lord's different. It's T'Challa.
It's T'Challa, yeah.
T'Challa was actually abducted by Yondu and raised in that role.
I mean,
not Quill.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it has actually been confirmed this is Chadwick Boseman's final performance in anything.
Okay. Wow.
And then,
so he recorded the voiceovers for this then?
Correct.
He did. Oh,
yep.
wow.
Mm-hmm. And we actually later see that the Guardians were pulled into what seems to be like a version of the Battle of New York.
It is.
And is it just me, or was Gamora kind of looking like Thanos?
Yeah, she had the same weapon. We had another part at the beginning where she's wearing the armor and has the same weapon as Thanos.
I didn't notice that.
Yep.
Yeah, she has that in the Battle of New York too.
So maybe
it's
she kills
good guy
Thanos or something?
Yeah, I think she killed Thanos and then it's like a good guy now. Like a good guy Thanos.
Maybe she's a bad guy Gamora.
Why is she saving New York then?
Maybe she's trying to take over New York.
Why is Star-Lord with them?
Maybe he likes her. I don't know.
Bad guy Star-Lord.
Yeah, why not?
Why are the whole Guardians of the Galaxy bad guy?
That's true. And we actually see Loki come back. Tom Hiddleston is reprising his role.
Of course.
Again, as Loki.
You can't do Loki without Tom Hiddleston anymore.
And in the scene, he's got this army of Asgardians with him facing Nick Fury, actually. And he's got this... You've seen it before, but
Bifrost?
no, it's the casket of ancient winters.
That's from the first one.
It's from the first movie. So he's trying another tactic to take.
And the
over.
only reason you remember that is because I made you watch it a few weeks ago.
Yeah,
and even though you don't really care for Thor, the movie.
It's on the bottom.
Okay,
bottom tier. But let's think about this. If this is happening around the same timeline or same universe as the new Guardians of the Galaxy or whatever, this means that Loki's not sent there by Thanos. This is Loki with Asgardians taking over.
It's chaos. It's who Loki is, and that's what Loki was telling. That's what the Loki series was trying to tell. So I think we might be seeing implications from the Loki series.
Is this a Loki could this be the Loki from Loki that's going into the timeline?
No.
I don't think so.
No,
that would be fun.
That would be fun.
It would be fun, and maybe we see an appearance of him or something, like just because they can do whatever they want to at this point. And another thing we saw were zombies, zombie characters. This is actually a pretty interesting idea. We see multiple versions of our favorite characters in their zombie form. We saw like a zombie Cap, zombie Iron Man. This was a very popular storyline in 2005, actually.
Hey, that's my birthday.
That's your birthday. And the story was actually written by, Nathan, you'll know this name, Robert Kirkman, who's the writer of the Walking Dead comics. Makes sense. He's writing a zombie story. But he's also the writer of Invincible as well.
Whoa.
So they're kind of pulling a Robert Kirkman story in.
I wonder if he'll oversee it. Because he's getting into the animated series kind of...
That's true.
Section. Cool. I wonder...
That'd be awesome.
So I knew you would really appreciate that, Nate. And we also know some from merch that there's a character, it's Spider-Man. He's got Strange's cloak of levitation on for some reason, but no other stuff. He's listed as Zombie Hunter Spider-Man.
Wow.
That's gonna be cool.
So yeah. And last but not least, Howard the Duck.
Whoa!
We got Howard the Duck.
Well, because you
got
think Mark, because I posted a meme about this yesterday on Facebook. Where Howard Duck was like, "I paved the way. You just walked it."
Right.
It was everybody else in the MCU behind him. Like he's the one that put the MCU together.
Pretty much.
He's actually the first MCU movie now.
I've never seen that movie. Yeah, I don't know if I want to.
Yeah, I don't want to either.
It's terrible.
Yeah. So Marvel's What If
somebody wants to reboot it and do a new one.
They should, or like a Howard the Duck series.
No.
Ooh.
No?
They shouldn't. No.
Howard the Duck and Groot. I could do that.
All right.
Yes.
This has gone off the rails.
Anyway, Marvel's What If premieres August 11th, and it promises to be a pretty exciting, wild, and confusing ride through the multiverse. We'll just have to wait and see if it ends up being canon in any way. But Nathan, it's kind of like Christmas for you. You got a new Batman movie.
Yeah.
I do.
And it's about holidays.
It is. See?
That was good.
That was clever, right?
Clever. Yeah, this is the movie I have been waiting for, and it was better than I could have expected. Let's jump into the differences from the comic to this movie and what we thought about the movie itself.
And that's coming up after these ads specifically chosen to make you think that Two-Face is a villain when everyone, including Batman, knows he's just an anti-hero. This is Tatooine Sons. All right. So thank you so much for listening and being a part of the Tatooine Sons family. You guys are awesome. And that's why we ask you to support the show in a way that's a little different than you may support other podcasts. If you're out there supporting shows that have Patreon, we ask you to continue to do that. We encourage you to do that. We do not have a Patreon. We want you to pay it forward instead of Patreon. No, and pay it forward, and do that by checking out the Ministry of One Child, the organization called One Child that helps children in extreme poverty around the world. There's a link in the show notes where you can learn more about it and see how you can be a part of changing a child's life, becoming a child champion.
Have you ever danced with the devil in the pale moonlight?
Yeah, I can fly.
I'm here to fight for truth and justice in the American way.
The people in this room, which one is A, wearing a spangly outfit, and B, not of use?
There's only one God, man. And I'm pretty sure he doesn't dress like that.
Batman has no limits.
I watched watched this episode. The last. He's an anti-hero. He's not that.
He's not. He's bad.
Anyway,
guy.
no.
Villain.
Alrighty. Well, let's just start initial thoughts of the movie. Well, okay. We'll include both parts. Initial thoughts of the overarching Batman: The Long Halloween. Go ahead, Sam.
I think it was an interesting, good story overall. All rounded. Yeah. I think it felt more like a detective film than anything else, and it was a good change of pace. I feel like, most Batman movies, they try to do it and it just ends up feeling like a superhero movie. This felt like a detective / mob film the whole way through, even with Poison Ivy showing up or Scarecrow or Mad Hatter or whatever. It still felt like a good detective film. I liked it.
Dad?
I enjoyed it. I felt like the pacing in the second half was similar to the pacing in the first half, and I was hoping that it would pick up a little bit and get a little bit more
That's fair.
action driven. But the story, you're right there?
Yeah, just swallowed wrong.
All right. The story overall was fantastic. The development of Batman, which is really what this story is about. It's about kind of introducing Rogues Gallery or bringing those in. Did I get that right? The Rogues Gallery? I'm so proud of myself. I've learned something through this podcast.
Yay.
And then allowing him to deal with the transition of Harvey Dent to Two-Face, and everything else that's going on with that. And then the ending, the way that they ended this film, or this version, of course, I haven't read the comics, with Harvey Dent's wife and the Batman's, the way he handled that I was honestly surprised by it.
Cool. Good. Yeah. Alrighty. So we're going to talk about the changes from the comic to this movie. There are quite a few. A few of them aren't completely terrible, but a few of them actually make a lot of changes. But the first one is Poison Ivy controls Bruce Wayne for 3 months in the movie. And the other one is it's a month. It's not long at all. And also Alfred was never really talked about in the comic. He wasn't mentioned during that whole period where Bruce was taken under control.
Well, I think that's a mistake, because when watching this, that was one of the first things I stopped the movie and was like, what's up with Alfred?
Yeah, I was about to say, you guys actually mentioned this in the movie, and it was on my mind as well of how they were going to explain this. And they explained it well. I mean, he's under mind control as well. So yeah, it works.
Yeah, I wonder why they didn't address that in the comic.
Page count.
Oh, they didn't want to draw.
They didn't want to draw it out.
I think that the idea, though, of what we were concerned coming into this, that there were still 9 holidays in the comic book that still needed to be dealt with, and how were they going to do it? Well, they did it by fast forwarding, by having Poison Ivy.
Yeah, so they kind of went through 3 issues in one little
within like 5 minutes of the film.
Because it's a 13-issue comic, but the problem is they had to get through all of that, which it worked well. It didn't feel rushed. They didn't leave anything super necessary out in those times, except for the Riddler. The Riddler was actually in the in the comic. They might not want to have pulled a Hush, so they just were like, let's leave him out of this movie. No, but he had a minor role. It wasn't absolutely important to the story. He was just in it talking with Holiday. So it's nothing huge, but he also is in the sequel to Long Halloween. So I wonder how they're going to tie that up if they do a sequel. The GCPD didn't investigate Bruce Wayne as long in the movie as they did in the comic. They investigated him as a prime suspect for a long time as being Holiday, because of the ties of his father to Falcone and him not wanting to be that and wondering about all of those mob ties. So
I think that the movie may have suffered from not letting that be a bigger plot line. I think that was a moment where it felt like I'll say it this way, hearing that in the comics, it's a much bigger storyline, sounds a lot more interesting than just this short little, okay, he's a bad guy or he's a suspect for a little bit and let's move on type thing that happened in this. I don't think that they developed it as well in the movie.
I get it. The film also had an extensive Scarecrow hallucination scene, which wasn't really seen in the comics. I actually loved this scene. It was really cool.
He went to
it felt
alleyway.
No, the whole hallucination scene where he's like under the influence of Scarecrow's toxin.
Right, which is what
in between the grave site, the cemetery, and the hallway, the alleyway. So that kind of whole thing that wasn't in the comic. What did you guys think about this scene? And probably is the reason this movie got an R rating.
No, yeah, it was intense and it was a little frightening, but it was good. And you know, it's always interesting to see Batman broken like that. It doesn't, you know, it shows his inner demons and his inner fears and stuff. And, I think it's done well.
Was the scene where he's confronting the family in the comic book?
Yes, I was just about to get to that. Yeah. So in the comics, Catwoman actually doesn't come to Batman's rescue in the alleyway. It's normally, Batman confronts the family in the alleyway, and then I think he goes to the cemetery at that point, from the alleyway to the cemetery, kind of backwards, and goes to his mother's grave, because it's Mother's Day and all that stuff. And so the GCPD follow him and they get him all squared away. I think it works better in this situation because of the whole connections with Catwoman and everything.
Do you think that that's why they changed that, was to really bring in the connection with Catwoman?
Yeah, I think that they did that. Bruce Wayne and Carmine Falcone's first meeting wasn't in the comics. That whole him as a kid and him talking with Carmine wasn't really mentioned in the comics. They didn't know each other all that well. I mean, he knew that his father had ties to him, but that was really it. But I actually thought that scene was fantastic, and I loved the dialogue in it, and I loved the interactions between Carmine and young Bruce. And
yeah, that was a really interesting scene.
Yeah, I loved it. So that also spawned another new origin for Two-Face's coin. His coin wasn't really mentioned all that much, especially because that scene wasn't in it. It was just a coin that Two-Face had. But in this one, it has connections to...
So it's Falcone that has the coin. It's originally Falcone's coin that passes to Bruce, which we saw pass in the first show, or the first version, part one, to Harvey Dent, which then becomes the Two-Face coin.
Yep.
That's kind of it was a cool little
addition.
tie-in.
Yeah, I like
the Independence Day holiday victim is different than in the movie than it is in the show.
It?
In the movie, it's kind of just a lackey of Falcone, not really having much implications. But in this movie, it was actually a hitman of Falcone. So it adds more necessary death kind of feeling to
like
that
it's escalating,
like it's
and that type
escalating.
of
Yeah, it's like it's getting closer and closer to Falcone. The circumstances of Carly Vidi's death, in the comic, she was actually trying to investigate Alberto's death, and so she broke into GCPD and went to the records and was looking at that, and that's where Holiday found her. And he shot her at GCPD.
Okay.
On her brother's birthday. So it's the same kind of timeline. But in the movie, it was, of course, she was in
the elevator.
The elevator, which is probably why this movie got its R rating.
That was
pretty graphic. It's just frightening. The death of Sal Maroni wasn't quite the same in the movie as it was in the comic. Very close.
That was the guy in the vineyard?
Yes.
The other crime family? Okay.
Yeah.
Do they develop the Maroni versus Falcone thing a little bit more in the comics than they do in this?
Not really, actually. Okay. I mean, they just assume that that Maroni and Falcone are kind of just two crime families pitting against each other, because they are.
And if you put their names together, you get macaroni, just so you know that.
Yeah.
Whoa. You think there's a connection there, Nate?
I do. The film features a supervillain-filled rampage in downtown Gotham. The Rogues Gallery wasn't seen all that much in the comic. It was like a 4-page spread of that whole battle we see getting to Carmine.
Okay.
But you were never seen having a rampage in downtown or anything. Again, it doesn't add any implications to the story all that much.
They're just fleshing things out.
Selina reveals everything about herself to Batman. In the comic, Selina doesn't reveal that she's Falcone's daughter until the sequel to Long Halloween.
Okay.
Dark Victory. So they just decided to put that in this, which it works. It feels better for how Batman sees her now.
Yeah.
And if it notices that they are noticing Dark Victory, which I hope they make a movie off of.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Two-Face isn't of two minds in the film. In the comic, Two-Face and Harvey are kind of always having this internal struggle, this internal battle. But it seems like Two-Face, the Two-Face side, completely took over Harvey in this film.
Okay, so once he turns to Two-Face, he's full Two-Face in this.
That's what it seems like. I mean, he may have, if they do the sequel, have like moments where Harvey comes out, but it seems like
Gollum Schmeagol.
Yes, it's like Gollum Schmeagol. Sophia Gigante's fall kind of makes sense for how this woman is built like a wall.
That's
at least
a big woman.
Yeah,
it's tall. But this whole scene actually sets up Dark Victory
really
very well.
And that's the sequel, right?
It is. Yeah. So that her death really sets up for the implications that happen from that in the sequel. So it's very important. And the identity of Holiday and Gilda Dent's secret.
Yeah.
That's different.
I sort of called it.
You did.
Yeah, sort of.
But my comment, yes, while it was kind of lying to you, I just didn't want you to figure out the twist. Well, I didn't even you said maybe she'd become somebody, and I just voluntarily said no, speaking about other things in Long Halloween, but you're like, that spoils the movie. I'm like, yeah, sure. But Holiday and Alberto and Gilda weren't lovers in the comic.
Okay.
They just kind of knew each other.
So what was the motivation for Gilda to become Holiday?
Did the first 3 murders to kind of start removing the Falcone family so that she could spend more time with her husband because she needed it.
Oh, so that's like Thanos MCU level, kind of weird.
This one, it was because they would.
I miss my husband, so I'm going to go murder people.
Because Falcone wouldn't let Alberto have a baby with Gilda, and they wouldn't let them marry each other, which feels like a better motive.
I do think it's better.
That is a much better motive. Also, kind of the fact that they kind of hinted that Harvey might be involved in one of the Holiday killings wasn't in the comic. It was just Gilda and Alberto. Also, Alberto faked his death in the comic and actually came back later on
in another series,
killing off every person who knew that he was alive for holidays.
Maybe they could still bring that back in another comic.
Kind of like lobster bait now.
He was lobster bait in the comic as well.
Oh, that's right. They chopped him up.
Yeah, he's a little shredded.
It worked for them all, but I don't think it worked for this.
I was going to ask you guys if you expected the twist, but apparently, Dad, you did. Sammy, did you expect it?
A twist, but I didn't know what it was going to be or who. They kept me guessing the whole time, which is a sign of good writing.
I expected the twist in the first part, part 1, and then didn't expect it in the second one. It just didn't seem to be connecting for it. And it was sort of, okay, so Two-Face must have been it the whole time. Then I see Gilda sitting in the basement and Batman with her, and then I was like,
in that whole scene, Batman isn't there when she's burning the holiday items. It's actually the last panel of the comic. It's a spread. They don't explain anything. They just have it, no dialogue. You seeing Gilda burn Holiday's items. They're noticeable. And you're kind of just like, oh, wait, she was Holiday. And so it kind of left it to be more open-ended. And it's a really chilling kind of way to end the comic. You're just like, oh.
This one felt like it had more closure.
I kind of like that better because I would have been confused had they not explained.
Okay. Yeah, they explained it well. But
are you going to even mention the end scene?
What end scene?
The end credits.
No, I don't care about that. No.
All right.
No, but the end credit scene was super short, but gave us enough to make me excited for whatever the next movie is going to be. We had what we thought would be trick-or-treaters come up to the door on Halloween.
In costume.
And it was actually Green Arrow and Flash, and then Alfred is like, Bruce, they're here for you. Which we've seen Flash, but we haven't seen Green Arrow before.
Right, have we seen Flash?
In Justice Society. Yeah. But having Green Arrow in this movie is very good because he wasn't even mentioned in the last DC animated universe.
Interesting.
Oh, wow. So, yeah, that was very informative and fun and just made me like the movie even more. And the changes didn't feel off. Thankfully, hush.
Yeah.
Next time I will be finishing the Batman Who Laughs storyline. That should be 2 weeks from now.
Is that what you're going to talk about?
Probably.
Unless something else happens.
Something else happens.
Awesome. Well, we look forward to it. Anything else you guys want to talk about?
Anything else?
Yeah, thank goodness the Hawkeye series is premiering November 24th.
The day before Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Give thanks.
Give thanks.
That's what you. So if you're like sitting at the table and everybody's going around, one thing you're thankful for. Thankful
that Hawkeye premiered yesterday.
Hawkeye premiered. Yep.
Yeah.
There you go.
Please don't do that at our table. All right, BB Nate.
The Suicide Squad reviews are off the charts. It's almost hit 100 critics reviews and it's at 98%.
That's insane.
And some fans that have seen it as well through a Discord server.
Through some Discord, they say that they absolutely love it. They think it's great. They think that they don't even mention Birds of Prey or the Suicide Squad movie.
Okay.
So it's exciting to hear that they're kind of just wanting to start it up again. Because Margot Robbie is a great Harley Quinn.
Okay.
But I'm excited to see where the reviews go from here.
We'll see. Yeah. Star Wars effects company ILM, Industrial Light and Magic.
Yep.
They hired the Mandalorian deep faker that switched out. The guy on YouTube that switched out and did a deep fake of Mark Hamill into the young Luke Skywalker in the Mandalorian season 2 finale.
And it looked better.
Do you think this is almost certain that we're going to see Luke Skywalker again?
Why would they hire a guy who's good at deepfaking Luke Skywalker if they're not going to bring Luke Skywalker back in? Which I just appreciate that they did that too. They weren't prideful and they're like, this guy did a better job. Let's
awesome.
hire him.
Yeah, that's good. Well, thanks for listening to Tatooine Sons, a pop culture podcast.
Yeah, if you had a good time listening, please share this with your friends. That would be awesome. It would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, and of course, this show is only a small part of the Tatooine Sons world, so be sure to like us on Facebook.
Join the 20,000 other followers on Facebook.
Get us to 30. And follow us on Twitter to get in on all the action.
Yeah, definitely. And don't forget to follow the show on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss any episodes. And please give us a review on Podchaser, and we will make a donation in your honor to one child. And that will help a child living in extreme poverty. So, next week not next week. Next week we're off on the 6th, but the 13th. The 13th we'll be talking about the finale of The Bad Batch. With that. And Sam, you got the first episode of What If? And then maybe Nate, you probably talk about.
Yeah, Batman Who Laughs, but we never know.
We'll just have to wait and see. All right. Anything else you guys would like to say?
May the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you always.
This party's over.
I like that Wookiee.
Don't get technical with me.
Joy, please. Yep, yep.